Hi, this video is for my students who are working on peer review. So this usually comes after you've been doing some writing and you have some drafts and you're ready to get some feedback. And this is important because although you may all want me to look at your draft, there's one of me and usually 20, 23, 25 of you per class. So it's very difficult logistically for me to really touch every single draft. And if you can get quality feedback from your peers, you can still make some progress moving forward in your revision progress and your process. So first, a couple of things that you should be able to do after watching this video and using the associated handout, which is Summary of Ways of Responding from Peter Elbow, who is a writer and has also been a professor at UMass, somewhat local for us. So you should have this with you. You should be able to differentiate between useful and ineffective feedback, identify and describe at least 3 of the different responses. There's a lot of different ones that you may decide to use or not to use, but at least be able to identify 3 and describe them. What is the point of them? And understand when I statements can be useful, and this is particularly when we're doing group work. So I sort of broke this down as far as peer review, some common issues that I've seen with peer review. And these common issues can make the process of peer review difficult for both students as well as teachers. And some of those problems can be things like the audience, those are your peers listening to your piece, might be afraid to say anything that could be critical because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So they'll say something very generic like, hey, that's really nice, or that's good job, which seems positive, but is not going to help the writer move forward in their particular work. Writer can be afraid to take risks with the audience. So that might be a writer who's just feeling nervous and doesn't have a lot of confidence in their writing. Remember, we're all writers at different stages and we can all make progress as we move forward. Perhaps the writer hasn't thought enough about their own work to figure out where they need to go next, so they don't even know how to formulate a question about their own writing. Or the writer doesn't think that the audience, the people in their particular group, know what they're talking about. That sometimes happens. And another one is maybe the writer's not interested in their own work to want to make changes. So this process is really designed to help you move forward, but if you're not really engaged or you don't really think that this is important, that's going to be a block from moving forward. And lastly, I thought about for common issues is that perhaps a teacher has not demonstrated how to get more from feedback. So I'm trying to fix that or alleviate that in some way. So one solution that has worked for me and my students in the past is to use this summary of responses, and this is the handout I referred to earlier. So it's broken down in a number of different ways, like there's the no responding, which is Roman numeral 1. So maybe you're at a very early part or you've been behind and you just want the people in your group to just listen. You don't want any feedback. You just are going to find more value from reading it out loud and having people listen to your work. But then there's other types of responses, and you can look at these on your own. There's descriptive responding, and there's very clear examples of how to go through this. And you'll need to come up with what it is that you're going to be looking for. Some of the ones that I've found are very useful, the one that's called pointing under descriptive responding, where you ask readers, what words or phrases stick in your mind? Like when you're done hearing it. Which passages or features did you like best? And they don't have to tell you why. They can just respond, loved this, liked the, maybe it was the way it sounded or how it was description or useful. Another one that can be useful in this section is called center of gravity. It's on the 2nd page. And so you ask your audience to tell you what seems to be the focal point, the center of this piece. This can be really useful because your audience members may surprise you. You think that the main idea is this, and they come up with something else. And so then you realize you're going to need to do some more revision work because you want the focus to be in a particular area. So definitely take a look at these different responses and read them through carefully, and maybe without distractions, so that when you come to class and it's time for us to do peer review, you'll have an idea of which one is going to work best for you. Because what you do is you pick one, and then everybody's going to get a sticky note so that they can give it back to you. And so your audience members are going to write "Dear" to the writer. In this case, I was being silly and I chose my cat because he was just here a second ago. I don't think we're going to see him. So I wrote "Dear Sir Souffle," which is the name of the black and white cat. And I picked type as sharing, which is one of the first ones where you don't get any response because, again, I was using this imaginary example. Soof doesn't need me to give him any actual real feedback. Comment is none, but the other ones, this would be your chance to write your comments next. So this is what your sticky note would look like. And then you sign it, so it's from, and then this is the audience, Miss Tiskus. So I kind of said this is the process. You use a little sticky note. After the writer reads their piece, determines what type they want, the audience listens, makes some comments when they write from, and then you give the sticky note to the writer, and then they have something they can use for their feedback. And that's pretty much it. If it's used authentically, it can be super helpful. There are a couple of things to remember about the ways to make it work. There are times where this can break down a little bit. So common sort of polite classroom discussion can make it work better. So listening carefully, staying on task, asking clarifying questions if you're confused. Help each other be the best writer or audience possible. If there's conflict, coming back to the I statements, that's when you can take a deep breath, organize your thoughts, and say something like, "Hey, I feel a little frustrated when you interrupt me when I'm reading," or "I feel demeaned when you talk to other people when I'm reading." So think about that. Also be mindful of time constraints. Some people are long-winded, and you want to make sure everybody in your group gets a chance to get feedback. Be polite and supportive. We want to build everybody up, not tearing people down. And this is especially important if the writer has material that maybe doesn't agree with your viewpoint. For persuasive essays or for research, the writer's subject material is very different than what you would write. So remember that if somebody is starting to read something that you're sort of, whoa, I want to jump in and say you're wrong, but you're just going to listen to their piece and their writing, and then you're going to provide just the feedback that they asked for, not above and beyond. Hope this was helpful, and you'll get some good feedback. This can be a very useful technique that you can take with you to college and to the workplace, and there are lots of times in our lives when we need to make sure our writing is at a top-notch level, and you may need help getting there. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.